AskReddit by ADTID. What screams we are not going to last long for couples? The way they speak to each other when they are not alone. I noticed this after my divorce and I started dating again, because you speak to these new people with a lot of respect and kindness. Then we'd get around married couples and they'd say awful things to each other in nasty snappy tones, and it was jarring. Fast forward 10 years and all those couples I noticed doing that are divorced now. I know a couple like this. They bicker over every single thing and neither backs down. It's so uncomfortable. I can't imagine the fights behind closed doors when this is just freely around friends. When one person wants to fix the other. If your relationship is a repair project, you didn't fall in love with who they are. You fell in love with what you want them to be. When both make the atmosphere so uncomfortable when you are in their house. Passive-aggressive jabs they think you wouldn't notice, but you could cut the tension with a knife, like Michael and Jan's dinner party. Walking on eggshells around your partner in terms of what you can and can't say if you feel you can't disagree with your partner and or voice your opinion without it turning into an argument. That can be not going to last or last several years too long. If they have strongly conflicted plans for their future, either means they'll break up eventually or one or both of them will end up in an unhappy compromise. Yep. Do not get married if one of you wants kids and the other doesn't. It is a whole mess. I have an aunt and uncle who I love dearly. He wanted kids badly and she did not. They almost divorced over it, but eventually worked through it. Traveled the world, had beautiful properties, the whole 9 yards. Now she is in her 60s, and every time she drinks she talks about how she should have had kids and my uncle gets this look on his face that is difficult to describe, but it's not good. Breaking up every few minutes and then back together again. Especially in the first couple months. A recent personal experience I witnessed. The entire immediate family of one side of the wedding said it was a bad idea, and less than a month into the marriage one of them stayed at their mom's house for the night because they were fighting. Also, they got engaged as a result of a failed breakup attempt. How on earth do you fuck up dumping someone so severely that you accidentally end up marrying them? Where are you? Hanging out with my cousins. Really? VC me RN. My friend had to do this all the time with his lady. They are split now, but every time he'd get to my place to just sit around and watch movies or whatever, he'd have to do a 360 video of where he was. When he smashes her face in the cake at the wedding and she hates it. I did the manly thing and asked my wife. She said no, she was spending hours doing makeup and didn't want to ruin it. So instead I gave her a tiny forkful to eat and it was great. If your conflict resolution method is either screaming and insults or completely shutting down. Lack of communication. Discussing every disagreement means screaming over each other, exploding, shutting off communications and or running out of the room. So they won't be able to resolve anything in a constructive manner. My wife and I always make an effort to have a constructive conversation about any disagreements we have if they come to the point of frustration or dissension. It always results in a better understanding of the other person and their point of view. It's the most important thing in our relationship without question. If all disagreements end in arguments. Me and my partner disagree about a lot of stuff. But we can talk, discuss, and even sometimes agree with the other person's side. It'd be weird if you saw eye to eye on 100% of stuff too. Seeing eye to eye 100% of the time usually means that one person is just not voicing their opinion, which is a recipe for disaster. Opening marriage to fix problems. Tobias Funky, you know, Lindsay, as a therapist, I have advised a number of couples to explore an open relationship, where the couple remains emotionally committed but free to explore extramarital encounters. Lindsay Bluth Funky, well, did it work for those people? Tobias Funky, no, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us. I was at a party one time and there was a marriage counselor there that had been working for 20 something years in couples counseling. I asked her what the number one sign was that the couple wasn't going to make it. Without hesitating, she said if one person shows contempt for the other's feelings, it's over. This is a really well documented one. Contempt is a dead giveaway. The moment you start sneering or using incredulous sarcasm, you should consider it to be a red alert. My wife and I are doing fine these days, but a few of our worst fights have contained contempt. Unfortunately, because we heard this guidance before, we realized we were in very dangerous territory and needed to take a really hard look at the root causes of what was pissing us off at each other. Anger can be a natural reaction, as long as it doesn't come with abuse. Contempt, however, is like black mold. Having a kid to fix their relationship. Ah yes. Like putting a dirty band-aid over an amputated leg. I always think of The Bad Theory, https://archive.nighttimes.com/op-talk.nighttimes.com/our-love-affair-with-predicting-divorce/closed bracket dart. If one person says to the other, "Oh look, a bird," and the other doesn't want to connect over the bird, just looking at it and giving a "hey thanks, that's a cool bird," the relationship is not going to go well. Basically, you have to be willing to make small everyday connections. I find this is true of a lot of relationships outside of romantic or sexual ones as well. These are called bids. As in, bids for attention. And yes, they are hugely important because tiny day-to-day interactions build up to bigger and bigger things. Being ignored, no response to a bird, or being responded to poorly, "Of course it's a bird, we're outside, what did you think it was?" can leave someone feeling very lost and unheard very quickly. When you start calculating how much you give and receive in a relationship. Interestingly, this is very inherent behavior, the concept of fairness. There's definitely a lot of give and take necessary in a relationship. However, if you get to the stage where you feel like you're giving a lot and the other isn't, that's not unreasonable. Obviously this is a bizarre and extreme example, but the principle is not unreasonable. Deleted. When they post each other too much. I get the occasional pic together, but when you full on document every little thing, it just comes across as wanting to prove your relationship to other people because you're insecure. I completely agree. In general, the more picture perfect the relationship on social media, the bigger the issues off social media. Usually me. Tattoos of each other's names. I agree. I say this though, and my parents have been married for just over 50 years. My dad has my mom's name on his arm and my mom has my dad's name on her ring finger. They are in their 70s now and the finger one isn't legible, but I mean, I guess it can work out, lol. If the relationship started by one of them cheating on their previous partner and then leaving them to be with this new person. I've witnessed 2 of these IRL and both of them ended with, surprise, more cheating. Like, I don't know why you'd possibly think starting a relationship with someone who you already know isn't faithful would be a good idea. There's an old saying, if you marry your mistress you create a vacancy. Based on a study of relationship survivability, the number of negative events vs positive events. You need 5 to 1 positive moments for a relationship to succeed. My therapist told me this, and now this is the second time I've ever seen or heard of it. It feels like a nice little Easter egg to see. Social media addiction. If the person constantly needs to show the world they haven't so, and that they are just so happy together, and then gets mad that the other doesn't post as much. Social media addiction ruins relationships. I know of a couple who the wife has access to his social media and will post as him showing pictures and checking into places with her. They are getting divorced now. Joint Facebook account. Yes, unless they are like 60 plus, then it's probably acceptable. Edit, typo. I heard eye rolling is the most common sign of eventual relationship failure. It shows contempt, which is poison to any type of bond. I say some stupid stuff just to make my wife roll her eyes. Constant arguing. Why is constantly arguing normalized? Because they grew up in households where it was normal. They internalize those family dynamics and base their communication styles off of them. Just arguing all the time. Doesn't matter what about. These things should not be public. To add to this, when they seem constantly, and I mean constantly annoyed with one another when out with friends. Meeting in rehab. It never ends well. This is true in theory, but I have a relative who met his now long-term partner in that context. He was a very long-term alcoholic, 2+ bottles of wine a day for decades. She had severe depression. They met in the hospital. They've now been together for 15 years. She's absolutely lovely, good for him and vice versa. He hasn't touched alcohol since. They genuinely lift each other up. I understand it's a bad idea 90% of the time, but I think it's a really nice story. When one of them posts a giant story on some dating advice and when the answer is almost always, you need to talk to your partner about this. It'll be the most mundane thing being blown out of proportion. I, 22M, can't stand when my GF, 23F, chews with her mouth open. What can I do to make her stop? Should I install a limiter on her jaw so she can't open up as wide? Should I call her mom and tell her she didn't raise her daughter right? Did you tell her? No. Like WTF?